God, Becky.
Can Miss Becky please raise her hand, bro?
You better call Becky with the cool hair.
Yo, what's good? It's your girl, Becky the Poet. Welcome to my podcast, Unspoken Words. You guys, I'm going to just go ahead and put a disclaimer now. Your girl is tired and hyper caffeinated, gassy, bloated, TMI. I get it. But if you're watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube, we have a special guest here. Special guest, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Simone. I am a licensed marriage and family therapy associate. So I have my associate license. I'm working towards my full license, but I have enough schooling to be able to do this therapy thing. I also have a blog, The Cozy Compass, that focuses on all things mental health and self-care. So you can go on my blog, check out those things.
All right, you guys. So this is episode 86. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Cameron Young. He is bringing the positive to the podcast. We'll work on that phrase later. We're not going to cut this out. Anyways, so you just mentioned you have a blog, yes. The Cozy Compass. Now, when I think of blogs, I think of back in the day where Tumblr was popping. You know, people used to blog all the time on Tumblr.
Yeah, Miss Tumblr. I definitely had one.
And then it's kind of like MySpace where you can like write your own things and people interact with it. And it turned into like group discussions for school and it turns to college boards. And people don't really blog anymore. Even when I first met you, you were telling me that you're kind of slowing down on it just because people don't read blogs, right? But how are you keeping the Cozy Compass alive? And before you get into that, explain to us, what is the Cozy Compass about?
So the Cozy Compass, it is I don't like to say mental health blog. I like to just say like it's a blog about life and just kind of navigating through it, which is why I have the name The Cozy Compass. Okay. Because it's like a compass, like navigation. And so I kind of talk about just different things that pop up in life that I feel like talking about. Like right now I'm kind of focusing on like pandemic stuff, self-care, just different things like that. So it's really just whatever is going on in life, I kind of talk about it. So yeah.
And so I know with the pandemic stuff going on, there's lots of topics to talk about. Even with podcasting or anything at all, you can bring up every little small detail, but how do you know what to, I guess, write a post about? How do you know, like, if your people are going to like it? And I know I'm asking a lot of questions. Let's start with those two first. Sorry.
Okay, so first question is figuring out topics.
Yes.
A lot of times, because I'm on all the social media, so I see a lot of what like people are talking about.
Right.
And so that lets me know like, okay, this is an interesting topic that I can maybe spin into some type of like mental health, self-care, like thing. So that's kind of what I do to figure out the topics. And then what was the second question?
If like how do you know if people are reading it, or is it gonna attract them reading it?
For me, I haven't at first I was really focused on like getting the audience, things like that. For now, I just write it, and then if people read it, great. If not, that's okay too, because it's more about like building up the habit of writing more, since I had to take a break because of grad school. Grad school got very intense. So
you read a lot of papers right in grad school, so
I
you're
had
like,
to,
I don't want to write any more blogs.
Right. So now that like I'm trying to get back into it, because I'm like, oh, I just have like a job and that's it.
Right.
Like I don't have a job and a paper and clients. So like now I'm trying to get back into the habit, so I'm not really focusing on the audience part of it right now.
Okay. Well, that's really smart. I think even a lot of people, I just had a question someone asked me today, like, do you monetize your stuff? I figured you would, because, you know, you have a strong platform, et cetera, et cetera. And I told them, I was like, when I started this, it wasn't even about the money. So it's not really about the numbers, right? I will say, doing anything, you do look at the numbers every now and then. You're like, and you kind of get discouraged, and then you have to go through the self-care routine of like, I'm not trying to pay attention to the likes, the interaction. I'm just trying to do it for myself ordeal. So I can understand where you're coming from when it comes down to blogs, especially, are people even reading it now since podcasting is taking over, since YouTube is taking over? Like, are people even like looking at it? Because I know, so Kayla has the Dallas Black Bloggers, right, where a lot of bloggers gather together. And I know there's Brittany B out here. She writes about travels and tips and whatnot. And those are interesting. And I feel like those would pop up if you're searching something.
Right.
But I still would say, as a blogger, I give you guys props to continue to write for us and for a couple of people who do still read. So I know you're just not blogging, and Cozy Compass isn't your full-time thing. You're also a
Counselor, therapist. People use it interchangeably.
Okay.
I prefer to go with therapist since like my license is marriage and family therapy.
So you earned that name. So you better call me a therapist.
Got the title after my name.
Are you considered a doctor?
No, I would have to get my PhD for all that stuff. Not trying to do that. So
I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like physical therapy, you have to get a doctorate for that, but you don't call them like doctor, physical therapist, person. Like you just call them by their name, pretty much.
Yeah. See, for mental health, if you become a psychiatrist, you are Dr. such and such.
Okay.
Because you have to do a portion of medical school as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know mental health is a big topic, right? And I'm pretty sure the careers as a therapist is like you have a wide variety of it, right? How did you pick? I'm not gonna ask how did you pick what you do because I'm not trying to get into your personal job life, but how can somebody find their niche to what kind of therapist that they're trying to become or who they're trying to reach out to clientele wise?
So for someone wanting to become a therapist and then for someone wanting to find a therapist?
Let's go ahead with answering both, but let's start with someone who's becoming a therapist first.
Okay, so I can share for like how I became a marriage and family therapist.
Okay.
So in undergrad, my major was in psychology, and so my minor was interpersonal relations.
Right.
And so for my minor, a lot of our professors were really grad students, and so one of my professors was a marriage and family therapist, and so he just kind of talked about what exactly that is, what's the difference between like a licensed professional counselor, and really it's the thinking. We can get more into that later, but as he talked about it, I was like, that's it, like that. Right. That's kind of what I want to do.
So you're kind of just moved by like the way your professor was talking, right?
Yeah.
Or I guess a mentor.
Yeah. So that I feel like that's what's helpful is talking to other people that are already in the field and kind of like getting a feel for what they do.
Ooh,
to know like
one of those things where professors are telling you, go shadow, go look in your field and see if maybe you want to be a personal trainer, or if maybe you want to be an athletic trainer. Ooh, you really had to listen to them.
Yeah. Or I mean, you could look online, but I feel like you would be overwhelmed if you go online.
No, look, when I graduated college, what can you do with the Bachelor of Science of Exercise Science? Like, what do you do with that? Gives you this wide variety of stuff, and I was like, what path do I want to take?
Yeah. So.
But I get it, like reading a description might sound great, and then if you walk into the field, you're like, this isn't so great after all, you know? So you were inspired by somebody. So pretty much your tip is just for people who are graduating or thinking about it, just to explore the broad topic of it and see what smaller branches they find interesting, correct?
Right, because even talk therapy is like, that's the main
thing.
There's
a such thing as talk therapy?
That's what we call it when like you're like basically sitting with someone talking about your problems and stuff. Talk therapy
like
is
regular
what we call
conversation,
right?
But also it's like known as therapy.
Right. So like the typical therapy that everybody knows is talk therapy, right? I'm about to break it down even more.
Is she having a therapy session right now with me? I'm just kidding. No, it's not happening.
So then there's also art therapy.
Right.
I have an aunt that's an art therapist, and that's more of like you're doing kind of the processing and stuff through your art. And then there's also equestrian therapy, and that's when they use horses. And so it's so many different kinds that are out there that a lot of people don't know about. And so I guess that goes into the second thing.
Yes, the second question of finding your right therapist. Because I know on college campuses, you have like general therapists. They're also grad students in the process of graduating. Right. They have to have a certain amount of people, blah, blah, blah. But there's all these people who are out there who are therapists, who have the title of mental health therapy. But I mean, I guess finding a specific one you need, let's say like you go to a therapist who's more focused on like relationships, but it's like you're not having issues in your relationship, right? So like, yeah, go ahead and answer the question. I'm just like cutting you off. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So when you go to search for a therapist, I always tell people to go to Psychology Today, or there's a couple of other ones out there, Therapy for Black Girls, for people that are specifically looking for like a Black therapist. So you can go on there, and a lot of times you can break it down by like what you're specifically looking for. So if it's like depression, anxiety, relationship problems, you can break it down and it will show you those different therapists that kind of specialize in those type of things.
So I do have a question now that you brought it up. So we do have Black therapists, right? Are in the world of therapy, are there more men or women?
It's funny because in the history of psychology and how it founded, it was all men.
Okay.
And now it's kind of become like a woman-dominated industry. So you see more women than men that are therapists.
I know because you know how there's so much politics going on and so many like not great issues going on, and so people who are of color or even Black are looking for therapists that can relate. Right. And I know even like in my culture, like I always wonder, is there a person who is loud and that understands like the stereotypicals of like Asian household, right? And maybe all be similar all around, but I will say like people speak differently to people who depending on their skin tone. Right. Some people are more comfortable with speaking to people who are same skin tone as them, and some people are like not comfortable with speaking with people who are the same skin tone. Like sometimes I think why is because with ourselves, like let's say like if you were Asian, right, and I was speaking to you about my problems in my life, and mainly it goes back to my parents, it's like you're gonna tell me what like I don't want to hear. Yeah. As for let's say like me coming to you, Simone, as a therapist, and I'm like, you're using your therapy skills, but also like you don't know anything about like my background. You just know what I tell you, which is sometimes hard because it's like one of those things where we're going to people because we want to hear something else. We don't want to hear the truth, and then other people will give us the truth, but in a different term. So, have you had clients or people, I guess, stop coming to you after the first time because we have run into this world of like virtual now, and talking to you on the phone? You put on your customer service voice, right? And you have people who virtually video chat you, and they're like, oh, you know, can you tell? Does it make you feel some type of way?
So far, I haven't. That's also because I work for a nonprofit that works with a lot of low-income people. Right. And so a lot of them, like, one, they're kind of used to seeing many different kinds of therapists, so they've seen them all. And then two, for most of the ones that I see, I've met with them face-to-face first, and then we've switched to virtual. So like they're okay because they've met me in person. I have a few that I've like started out with on video, but so far I haven't really had anybody that's like, this ain't gonna work. Like this is not a good match. So
well, that's good. That's good. I feel like in the older ages, like if you were talking to people who are like maybe our grandmas and grandpas age, I feel like it's a little bit different times. Yeah. I know some workplaces, you know, or even grocery stores, or, you know, walking by a group of people talking, you hear people talk about like stuff that's going on right now, and it's like, nope, that's not what I agree with, but it's their conversation. You don't want to butt in and cause issues. And some, you know, you might just because to prove a point, right? But I know as therapists, you deal with a lot, especially like with your own life, and you have to show up to work, putting your own life to the side, and have people complain about what you're complaining about too, right? I don't want to say complain because I want to say that you don't go to therapy to complain. You go to speak and work out your problems. Right. But right now, how do you feel about everything being virtual, everything being mostly about the pandemic, and everything being mostly about, I don't know what's going to happen in the future?
So it's funny because most of my clients don't really talk about the pandemic. They like to take this time to talk about everything else that's happening in my life. Forget the pandemic. Like this is the one time I can talk about whatever I want to talk about. So a lot of times I don't really talk to them a lot about the pandemic. I might check in just to see like where they are mentally with it. Cause a lot of times people like to put stuff like, I'm gonna put that in a box and like not touch it. So I'll kind of like poke the box a little bit, be like, what's going on in here? But if they don't want to talk about it, then it's fine. But for me, I don't really like the virtual because I'm at home. So like when
You're too comfortable.
Well, it's not even too comfortable. It's more of like, for therapists, we take on a lot of people's stuff. Yeah. And so a lot of times we have routines that we do to kind of leave that stuff at work as we transition from therapist to whoever we are, you know, in our normal life. Right. And so with me working from home doing the virtual, there's not really the time to decompress like I normally do. Right. So I have to like figure out something else to kind of like leave whatever like for the day.
I was just talking about that. It's kind of like your household, your layout. Once you buy a house, you lay it out a certain way. And sometimes people have their work offices, right? And since right now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have work offices now that they use, and that they close the door, it's like that's where it's left, right? As for my mom, she always tells me all the time that she doesn't stress about work because she leaves it at the door. So when she walks to the house, it's a whole new different mind frame. And I love that about her, because it's just like one of those things, like when I come home from work, like right when I get off, I clock out, I'm like complain, stress, still go home, complain. It's like I never left work, right? And that's why right now I'm slowly starting to like not complain as much. And also, like, if it's work, leave it at work, and then it'll all handle out. Because you know how we are. We're dramatic people in general. We're human beings. We're just like, oh my gosh, like this happened today, and blah, blah, blah. But then 2 days later, you're like, oh, I understand why it happened.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I react like this. But I will say, a lot of people who do work at home now, I can sense it. Like, I have family members who work at home, you can kind of sense that they're stressed a lot more. But they're also doing a really good job of saying, like, oh, it's okay, but I understand, like, this wasn't planned for anybody. No one planned to stay home longer than 3 months, right? So here we are today. So for anybody who is working at home, what is one advice you would give them to, I guess, decompress that you experienced yourself that helped you?
So I'm all about routines, because I feel like routines help you mentally prepare for or let go of whatever it is that you're like preparing to let go. So having some type of routine to say like, okay, this is the end of work and this is me going back to home life is helpful. So like we have our desk set up in the bedroom because we don't have an office, we in an apartment. So then like what I'll do is at the end of the day, I close my laptop, I'll unplug it, move it to like another part of the room, and then like I'll scoot the table back. And while I'm doing that, that's my decompressing time of like letting go of whatever for the day. And that's been helpful for me to just create some type of routine that I do every day at the end of the day, like work day. So
I like that. So we're going to go past your career, your job, and all that part. We're going to go into the whole self-care ordeal. So I've talked a lot of this on my podcast before, like taking care of yourself, myself, whoever's listening, right? Take like self-care. But sometimes I feel like we get self-care confused with the whole, like, I need to shut the whole world and focus on myself, and it becomes selfish. It deteriorates us a little bit more, and you kind of come off as being like having this ego of like, oh, she's too good for us now, or he or she, right? So have you dealt with that yourself, where you're like, not shut people off, but seen it with your friends or family who try to do self-care, but it turns to be like shut the world down?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had to think about it. I'm like, yeah, I have friends, and I've had to have that conversation of, it's okay if you need a break,
right?
Tell me.
Right. Like,
don't just ghost me and then be like, oh girl, I was going through it, I'm so sorry, I should have just let you, like, let me know. Don't say I should have. Do it. Because communication is the biggest thing in any relationship, whether it be romantic, friendship, family. Communication is the biggest thing. So like, if you need some time, let people know, and also give a time frame.
Why do you think communication is always the answer to everything, but one of the hardest thing to actually execute or be better at?
I really don't know. A part of me feels like communication has just been dysfunctional from the very beginning, and so we're constantly learning and unlearning different things, because a lot of the ways that we learn to communicate is through our family.
Right.
Like, you know, whoever raised you, a lot of times you learned how to communicate based on how they communicated.
Right.
Then you get older and you're like, I mean, it worked when I was a kid, but it ain't working too good now. So then you have to like learn different ways to communicate, because whoever you're like interacting with may have learned a different way.
Right.
And so then you have to kind of like move and kind of figure stuff out to be able to communicate better with someone else.
So you guys, you see me looking down, I'm looking at a little guide here, so I don't think I'm looking at my, doesn't matter. Okay, anyways. But so I know the phrase, we're going to go to the whole thing of, all right, let's say self-care is shutting out the whole world and they become successful. And I know a lot of rappers or a lot of people who do this in the hip hop world, they're like, I did this by myself. I had nobody on my back. Like you hear it all the time in the interviews, right? But the phrase lonely at the top is actually a real phrase. And I know when you become successful, all the money, all the boys, all the girls you bring to the house, all the new friends you have, and all the people around you, you're still lonely. how does that, I guess, affect someone's mental health when it comes down to being successful, having all they wanted, but getting there, but not being happy at all?
So we as humans naturally crave interaction with other people. And so if it's lonely at the top, like, yeah, you've got everything, but you really don't.
Right.
Because the biggest like core part of ourselves always like want some type of human interaction.
Right.
So especially when I work with clients, I always talk about the importance of having a support system, having some type of system for whenever like you're going through something, they are your go-to, whether it be friends, family, some random support group that you found on Facebook, whatever it is that's your support system, like it's important to have that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back to the Cozy Compass. So now it's the pandemic time. We're like 6 months out. And just curious, I'm just picking at your brain now. You'll be like, oh gosh, why did she even, because I did a little bit of research. Your last update was when you wrote something about if you've been affected by COVID, right? Why not write a lot of blogs while you're in the pandemic times right now?
Because it's hard for me to get back into the habit. I'm be honest.
She's like, damn, Becky.
I mean, I've been crocheting and like doing, again, all my self-care stuff because this working from home, the state of the world, everything is a lot.
Right.
And so like trying to get back into a writing habit has been difficult. So I'm trying to work on it. Like I have a post coming out. So this week.
She's like, dang, I'm called out. Now I have to.
Well, I mean, I knew that we were doing this. I was like, I probably should update. But but I'm trying to build a habit. I set a goal for myself to at least write one blog post a month. I was like, even if I don't post consistently, at least do one a month and slowly build. So I'm trying to like give myself grace and not beat myself up if I don't meet like my original goal of wanting to post every week.
Right.
Just being like, as long as you put something out, that's the most important thing.
Right.
So
I know you're a therapist, so you talk to a lot of people, and you just said that you take a lot in. You have to deal with someone else's stress. I know you said to decompress, you kind of close out your office pretty much, set it back up to normal. And you just said you crochet. Mm-hmm. Was that just something you picked up because you always done it, or was it also something to help you relieve stress?
I've done it off and on since like high school. My grandma used to crochet, and so like I kind of, after she passed, I kind of like continued that on. And so once the pandemic started, I found a Facebook group of all these women that were just like super dope at crocheting, and I'm like, I want to do that. I want to figure out how to do that. So like it got me back into it because I found a community, again, support system. Yeah. So it got me into it, wanting to try different stuff, and then I realized it also was a stress reliever because I like to do stuff with my hands, and I mean, I played the piano, and that used to be my stress reliever. Fun fact, yes, I was classically trained for 9 years. So I used to play the piano like back home, and we don't have room for that here.
Right.
So I had to find something else to do. So like crocheting gives me something to do with my hands, and so it's like a stress reliever.
So anybody who's listening who's a therapist, do connect with Simone. What are some advice you can give to somebody who is a therapist right now themselves and who wants to know how to, I guess, decompress from the world, from work, since everything's virtual now? What are 3 things you can tell them to do that will help them?
First thing, have a routine. Second thing, talk to other therapists, because like I have my therapist friends that I talk to, and we talk about doing this virtual thing, what's been helpful, especially working with children and figuring out how to get them to pay attention. So,
right.
You know, just talking to like your therapist friends, and then finding other activities to do that are like your own form of self-care.
Awesome. And where can they find you on social media?
You can find my personal page on Instagram, Simoné, Cmoenay. I always have to spell it.
What did I think it was? Simone.
Yeah, that's what you thought it was, but no, it's Simoné because my name has an accent mark on the E. So like anywhere else in the world, they would pronounce it Simoné, but my parents was like, forget the grammar rules. We're just gonna call her Simone. So that's my personal page, and then like the Cozy Compass is my other Instagram page. I will be posting on there. I have some stuff that I'm planning for my Instagram page, so look out for that.
Awesome. Well, she has good topics, by the way. I was gonna address that, but I was like, you just go see it for yourself. I'm sorry, you're gonna freestyle for us? I'm just kidding. She's
like,
not a poet.
no.
But you guys, I am so happy to be on episode 86. I'm so glad to have you here. Finally made sense for you to be on the show, especially during these pandemic times. You want somebody to let them know, like, if you're a therapist or what's going on in life. I need some professional advice. Yeah, don't go to her. She's got a charger. I'm just kidding. I don't know. But I will say, you guys, we're going to hop into season 10 soon, which is 4 episodes away. I'm excited. Episode 100 is where I'm looking forward to. You're like, oh, why should just episode 100? No. But anyways, if you're listening now, I'm going to give you a little background about season 10. Season 10 will be virtually taking you to Lansing, Michigan. Why Lansing, Michigan? A random city in Michigan. A place where the poetry room is held. It's held at the Robin Theater. So we'll go into the creatives that perform there, the person who runs the Robin Theater, the host of it. And then we'll go to episode 100 where you might see something virtual. And I told you I was against that. But it's okay. Also, if you like this episode or podcast, like, share if you're on YouTube. If you're listening to this, share it with somebody who has listened to it before. Also, I got merch. No hoodies right now because it's hot Atlanta in Texas, like 102 degrees. But I got merch. To reach out for merch, just go to either Becky the Poet, the Instagram, or Unspoken Words podcast. Yeah, she knows better than I do.
The shirts are dope.
Right.
I mean, I do kind of outside of the therapy stuff. I'll be helping her too.
And then my email, unspokenwordspodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget the S after words. People always forget that. And they're like, you're not getting my emails. I'm like, yeah, I forgot the S. But it's okay, you guys. I love you guys. I am Becky the Poet. We have Simone here, or Simoné, whatever you want to refer
However
to
you
as.
feel of it. Yeah, you know.
Founder of the Cozy Compass, a mental health therapist with her degree. I don't know. I need to come up better phrases. Okay. Bye. Love you guys.
Bye.
Becky, we got
Yeah, tell Becky to pick up the phone.
Oh my God. Becky.
Can Miss Becky please raise